in his teachings, and then actually take refuge in the effect, in our own achievement of ultimate enlightenment, and which has then abandoned all the faults and has acquired all the qualities.
Ane rimba shintu saani tar ane zinda shirim tenpa maasa koleji tenpa ki tatu ki ngarantu topja tatu jiwaarwa tanda shirim tenke zinda tangpo tenye diki topja tatu jiwaarwa ko tanda yuwaarwa sena yuwa maarwa ta ko kandashi yungore sena tindaki labda jimgen deki gewa shinyi teni labda gegen ten rangu zundu chawala teni ane zinda rangu nega la goya ki juju jijawe ki 아니 롭전 대라 몽비 몽바 대다 림바 신도 사니 랑게 롭전 체 개겐기 된 롭전 사니 진짜 레레레레 템비기 아니 렌데 레레레레 체가라 탈 콜레지단 자와 템겐기 아니 템바기 랑기 템바시 연구 알아봐 그 단다 요아 말해봐 단다 롭전 진경 코야 템겐디 제마 템겐 코랑 가사 코라다 말해야 돼. 다 그이를 되지 마. 신도 로알 마법을 전에 그 톱자 집에 가도 그 톱자 정도도 와. 와. 그 배텔라 샤니. 다 말한도 대접 타죽 써야 돼. 두스 좀 거야. 야. 와.
So in a similar way as being explained, we try to follow the Buddha's example, and well, in the same way we can also explain it from a worldly perspective. Yeah, if you want to have a good education, then initially you have to go to school, high school, college, university, etc. So also that we do in stages. Yeah, that also doesn't happen from one day to the other, and there we actually the same kind of process is going to be happening, because initially the young student doesn't have enough knowledge. Yeah, he has still a kind of form of ignorance or a form of not knowing certain subjects he has to study. So this kind of ignorance slowly is being abandoned while he is engaging in the studies. Yeah, so this not knowing the different subjects is being abandoned, and he gains the qualities of the knowledge of whatever subject he or she is studying. So then he progresses in school and college, etc. And then we see he depends upon a teacher or more teachers who teach him the different subjects. Yeah, so by depending on this teacher, he progresses in the classes from school to college all the way up to university. And in the end, he will be able to achieve his goal. Yeah, so in a similar way, before he starts with his studies, he has the potential, so to say, to achieve that kind of education, but he only has to work on it. Yeah, so in a similar way, we have to progress on the spiritual path in a similar way. Initially, there's a lot of not knowing or a lot of ignorance, so that has been abandoned by listening to the teaching, by studying the teaching, by practicing in stages. We also gain more and more knowledge and abandon ignorance and gaining more qualities. Yeah, so in a similar way, we can take this example of a young student going to school and college and university. So in a similar way also, we as Buddhist practitioners, we should try to practice in the same way, in stages, and slowly gaining more qualities and abandoning the faults. And then ultimately we will be able to achieve the same goal as the Buddha has achieved, and that is actually a potential we have already right now. So we can actually take refuge in that potential to achieve all those realizations of Buddhahood. Yeah. So from that point of view, is that ultimate potential or that ultimate state of Buddhahood we haven't achieved right now, but we have the potential to do it if we work on it.
말한도 아니 가르래서나 나바 산제베 간들이 스리가라 누지 투지 콤레티 스리가라 저완인지 전부 콤발레 때는 유 산제 주지기 아니 추수국 주지기 유대다 콤발레 때는 아니 산제부터 독시 주글 전부 지레
So then how did the Buddha achieve his ultimate goal? So also the Buddha, he didn't achieve his goal by a certain creation, or a world creator who created a person called the Buddha. That is not how the Buddha achieved his goal. The Buddha achieved his goal by development of the mind, and development of the mind from great compassion and bodhicitta. So by depending on these qualities of mind, the Buddha was able to gain more qualities and abandoning the faults, and ultimately achieved the state of Buddhahood.
Oh yeah, that thing is about that and that. To the love of Drongan Tegi, Rangi Lobjong Riba, she to check together. Rangi Lojo Yabo, Chindi Kangala, Ani, Tinda to Soso, Kaduki, Lobzanki, Mari, remember saying a Sewa Chevala, Anna, Geganjing, a watch cook. Gegan Tegi, Ani, Kasore. 진짜 소소라 까도 그 계기 랑도기 내대 때니 롭장 랑도 간가라 아니 소소 롭장 차와 순데 차차 아니 바스 쳐가지고 그거 와 어떤 난신 전이 다 나바 산제 그 전념들 냄지 간라양 아니 유잡 담바담 롭진지 티바스나 체수나 내가 순지 완전히 제수나 바샤바이 소환하시 다들 두세 자래데 다 유잡 세가라 랑도진에 치지 말로 바 등갱기 산제치 오, 산란도진에 치지 말라봐 등갱기 뒤대기 아니 가소래 방자 대다라 아니 저와를 제바기 가소래 탑 치군저지 대주의 된다위 랑도진에 진짜 집발로 로로바 나신 체리가라 아니 저 치군저지 이 체리가라 유잡 세대 테레스 와 유잡 세대 와 초라 렌다 잡아 나신 이라는 주택의 비기 산재 택이 랑도진의 친지 말로 봤대. 뒤대기 랑도진의 친지 말로 봤대. 그 탑대 랑게 냠술래. 그 초상바 쳐받아 잡이 냠담술래. 오 대년도 잠발라 말라 때네. 다 심바 신도 진짜랑 랑기 그와가 몸비 민바데 세네. 럽전 차수 쳐받나신 전에 점된대지 쳐를 대라야 심바 신도 다 독시야 좋고 와래.
So we have to train in stages, as been just explained, like the example of the young student who progress in high school, college, as well as university, etc. So then also he goes to the different classes, and in those different classes he has different teachers who actually teaches him or her the different subjects. And in the Buddhist context, then the teacher teaches what actually to be abandoned, what to give up, the mistakes or the faults that has to be abandoned, and the qualities that has to be developed. So also in the Buddhist context, we see the same kind of structure. So then, we just talked about the effect, the effect taking refuge in the effect Buddha or our own potential to achieve Buddhahood in the future. Then also from the point of view of the cause, we can take refuge, and that means we take refuge in the Buddha. And why is that so? Because having fear, has been explained in the different texts, having fear for samsara or the suffering of samsara and want to be liberated from the suffering of samsara, as well as having faith, stable faith that the Buddha has the potential to lead us beyond those forms of suffering. So that's from the point of the cause. And then the Buddha, he himself, will teach us the Dharma, the Dharma or the teachings of the Buddha, which helps us actually to develop ourselves. And the Buddha is therefore called the teacher, which teaches actually the faultless teachings of those subjects, which deals with what has to be abandoned and what has to be developed. So by teaching these subjects of the Dharma, that's actually the Dharma jewel, the teachings of the Buddha, we put into practice. And in a similar way, we also need a Sangha, a Sangha community. As we saw in our example with the college, we also have classmates. In college also we have classmates with which we can discuss and help us in our studies. So in a similar way, in our spiritual part, we have the Sangha, the Dharma friends who help us on our development. And then we train in stages in this way by depending on the teacher, the Buddha. the Sangha as our helpers on the side, as well as actually practicing the Dharma or the teachings of the Buddha, and then we will be able to develop ourselves in stages and gain the qualities as we just talked about.
Ane langdo ji ne chi ji ma la ba de gi ane xin ye dian zu se de kai chi zu de ba de ba xin ye dian zu se ge yuan dian gun ji xu ju qin jian ji su xin dan ba lam ji zao ru le ba tuan ne ba ba tu ma yu ku wa cha ba xin bi dan ba qin ji lo si ga la de nga rang zu ti da ka so le ro ma nyu ba to ma me ba na ta nga rang zu ba do ko tu se ko wa le ko de de wa de da ro ma nyu wa gyung ku se yuan dian gun da de ba ge ta ba de draw che ba la draw se lam de tyang gan ji xin yi ji go go wa de san jie jap de ba ba san jie ji go go wa de jap san jie ngwe dang san jie jia wa ji go go wa de wo de yin zang yuan dian gun ji xu ju qin jian ji si gan la la da de ge wi xin la de ka so ge gan de me na la da de gi 87度也看不着啊！我天哪，现在的原点规矩是就听见这些，俺的心里点就挺用过的啊。
So we have in this way a teacher, the Buddha, who basically teaches us how to achieve our goal of ultimate liberation. Yeah, so that means we prevent oneself from falling in the lower realms. And the teacher is the perfect guide, because if we like to travel, we also need a certain guide to a place we have never been before. So here with our spiritual attainments is the same. Certain attainments we haven't achieved right now. So in order to achieve those attainments, we need a special guide. Yeah, so that is referring to the Buddha, the teachers, and the teachers who teaches us those different points of our mental development. So since beginnerless lifetime, we have been going around within the cycle of samsara, but never been able to escape the suffering of samsara and never be able to achieve liberation. So we need a guide who leads us to that part of liberation. So this guide is referring to, if you look at the little copy we gave you on page number 3, yeah, the foundation of all good qualities, that is referring to the first verse of this particular text we will be dealing with today. So that teacher guides us to a part we don't know yet, yeah, guides us to get all the realizations, as well as a teacher in a class guides us through our studies. Yeah, without a teacher it will be very difficult to pass our exams. Yeah, so in a similar way, from our Buddhist point, from Buddhist perspective, for our spiritual training, also we need a guide. Yeah, we need a teacher. So what does then also read in this first verse on page number 3? It says, "The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Correct devoting to him is the root of the path. By clean seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon with great respect." So here also Lama Tsongkhapa in this short text, foundation of all good qualities, starts initially with making requests in order to generate the realization of reliance upon a teacher.
다 들리 가르래서나 간다서로 제가 람 냠슬랜디 가르래고 제거래서나 안에 통마들라 가르래서나 좀 된데 부다기 수안나시 체니 그와 가소래 아니 가서 뒤집어대 장보 통마들라 좀 된데 수바당 아니 시자원나라 수바나시 체니 좀 되지 디바지양 메차치 개와 필수는 처와제 랑기 셈니 용서서 데니 산제 담바인 전에 송안나신다 아니 불러변 봐봐래 소나미 바탕보도 파도 단년 도바당 타마다시 군도 바 송안나시 전에 토마데라 좀 되게 탈락게 투지신보단 되비 간지 송아래서나 마랑지 토마 녀지 룡하게 녀지도 맞춰 송아이 봐 류지고네 아니 뭘 생각해 봐 早就把它烧完了，我给过呢，现在最忙完了烧完，一级过呢，那是那真的烧完，另外个有些的他们干呀的，另外个有些的了的呢，俺家看着用过来是呢，就你我结果一般，结果东啊就不用给我一张， dunga mede la debu dewa ngato sama de dewa dewa sama nyamba yinzang thoma dunga mede na dunga ge yu nyejo baba de thoma de da zomde de yu chi ga nyam su le de sungwa de ba chi am mi cha chi so na mi ba tang bo do o de sungwa de wa.
So then the Buddha is showing us the path to liberation. So also, as been said, the Buddha shows us that in stages. So then initially the Buddha advises us to give up negative deeds. Has been quoted many times in the different sutras, the different teachings of the Buddha, where it says, do not commit negative deeds, practice virtue, and subduing one's mind is the teaching of the Buddha. So this quotation basically summarizes the whole Buddhist teaching, not to commit negative deeds and accumulating virtue. That also been explained by many great masters of the past, like the Indian master Aryadeva in his commentary on the 400 verses. Also, he talks about these essential teachings of the Buddha, to prevent negative deeds from happening and to practice virtue and to subdue one's mind. So how do we do that? So also the Buddha, he himself initially generated compassion, and based on this compassion he abandoned negative deeds, the negative deeds of body, speech and mind. So negative deeds of the body like abandoning killing, etc., of the speech abandoning lying, etc., and of the mind abandoning attachment, etc. So by abandoning negative deeds, one prevents suffering from happening. So why is that so? Because from negative deeds, suffering arises. So if you take away the cause for suffering, suffering won't come into being. So if you eliminate negative deeds, then you won't have to experience the result, which is suffering. So in this way we were able to abandoning suffering in the future. And why is that so? Because we all actually want happiness and don't want suffering. So based on this simple kind of logic every sentient being is striving for, the Buddha taught initially on the first stages in order to achieve more happiness within samsara. So that's the initial first teaching or the first stages of the Buddha, and leads us to the state of enlightenment.
Oh yeah, 대답이 안에서는 미바 담보 도와서 미기 주보대 뽕아 태양 상아랑도 롱배 침기 가고 소저 밥 미쳐 왔잖아. 마지막 매년 받자면 제와디나 콜라 개와 가요. 침도 좀 마지막. 제부 동안 영화라 동아디 믿어봐 아니 랑게 탐자 쳐야지 아니 추좀 송니 내가 집은 거 추좀 해야 돼 뽕에 내가 집은 거 추좀 돼 송대 잠바 아니 대고 되라 대화지만 좀 해야 말이 그봐 어디 내가 집은 거 아니 가서네 추좀라 송하게 송심 되라 추좀 해야 돼 말이 그봐 내가 집은 뽕아 뒤내서도 맛이 친절하다 배 미게 생각에 자원에 지금 많이 미게 주 빵데 가나 추름 되기 미게 주 본거 추름 되게 깨고 와래 미게 주 본거 추름 되니 아니 가서는 땡디 마서 가게 땡 치마라 단다기 류된 된데지 다 다리 땡데라 아니 말아서 사제주 고마타도 남나데 남데 대주도 남나스바지 용지 깔아 가보시라래. 예상은 텐더가 주변에 가려서나 반대 마인 바 땡치마 처러 치마 땡 단주기 땡 된지지 토비하기 다 땡주 수름 규주 고고 와래. 텐더와 주디 가려래서나 수름을 내요 말이. 원주균이 수름 내시면 계속 안 하지. 수름을 나는 양 아니 가소래 수름 남바 타바 송해당 아니 처러 치마 때라 온디 류된 텐데 토가 요한 같은도 말람 자야당 아니 땡들이 포와 이나에 제와 치만 온디 류된 미점지 토바되지 이나양 우신 포바 냠다 치드비 특이한 마장아이나 양 이거 치드비 특이한 상관 대마인바 지소 그 초제 와라서라 어 텐데 지기 쳇들라고 땡들이 된다 토바 디내가 되라 아니 미그 지봉 그 추름지 캐랑데 나네 아니 야보지 송선아 서러지 맞대기 땡들이 요와지 아니 가서래 다쳐와 인장 반대 땡들이 시도는 예바가와지 가르쳐서나 여기 땡들 예바라 용원도 조거와 인장 유추좀 렌지 땡동 쳐봐라 주름 거야 단다기 단조기 대상 된다지 쳐봐지가 주름 넘버 다봐 시조에 뭐란 주만비에 참자 거야 아니 지속이 저쳐 거야 텐데지 여와 인장 유디 주가와 인장 제우디 아니 예바가와 인장 다 다른 아랑도 땡 렌지 이 뒤되라 딱 나선 그 제와 제와 치마들은 온도 연양이 유디 주가와 인장 렌지 예배 다베 땡상디 시도니가 텐지 죽주네 인장군도 인보 레벨을 뒤자매바 제와 친지로 세가나 인장 quy도 몇개 지봉고 치든라 아니 냥실량 고그래 된다도 죽게고 왔다
So then we try to follow these teachings, yeah, the teacher and the Buddha has taught us. So what does it mean? Basically, abandoning what is called the 10 non-virtues, yeah, the negative activities of body, speech and mind. So that's a kind of, in a similar way, if you live in a country, you have certain laws, yeah, in order to let the country prevent a lot of problems from happening. A certain country makes a law. Yeah, so certain things you're allowed to do, certain things you're not allowed to do, in order to prevent problems from happening. In similar way, if we wish happiness and don't want suffering, then also we should be intelligent in the way to abandon the causes for suffering and create the causes for happiness. So that's also what we try to do here. And that means if you take away the cause for suffering to come about, you take away the effect of suffering. Yeah. So how do we do that? By practicing what is called morality. If you practice morality, you will be able to create the right causes for happiness in the future. So what kind of morality are we talking about? We're talking about the practice of abandoning the 10 non-virtues, yeah? The abandoning of negative deeds of body, speech and mind. So this kind of morality, this kind of state of mind that wishes to protect oneself, yeah? That is actually what morality is all about. This kind of a mind that wishes to protect oneself. Protect from suffering from happening in the future. Yeah, so that's what we call morality. So we abandon the 10 non-virtues and thereby creating positive deeds and creating causes for happiness in the future. So then also we will see that it is not easy, yeah, to practice morality, and because seeing that practicing morality is not easy, then also you know that the effect which has to come into being is also not easy to achieve. So from that point of view, you can actually see that it's not that easy to achieve happiness in the future and to achieve higher rebirths, like a precious human rebirth we have right now. So what are the causes for a precious human rebirth? There's, first of all, we need pure morality. That's the first initial cause for a good rebirth in the future. The second one is a kind of stainless prayer. You need a kind of strong prayer to be reborn again in the future and have the right conditions, as well as we need a third cause which helps us to get the right conditions. Yeah, you need certain conditions to be able to practice. You need a center, you need a library, you need teachers, etc. In order to create those causes, we try to practice the perfections, like the perfection of generosity. Yeah, if you practice generosity, and also the right conditions will happen in the future. So if you practice in this way, then you can also see you create the right causes, but you can also see that it's not easy to have all these three causes together of pure morality, stainless prayer, and practicing generosity, etc. So then you can also see, because it's difficult to get the causes, then also the effect to come into being is also not easy. So that is then also referring to the second verse of page number 3 of that little booklet, where it says, understanding that the precious freedom, yeah, so the Lama Tsongkhapa talks about this precious human rebirth, yeah, understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, it's greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Yeah, we just talked about difficulty from the point of view of the cause. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly, day and night, takes its essence. So he actually talks about the need to create those causes and the need to practice morality.
That's right. Oh yeah, that's why the name is Shikushikushi. That's Henry. That's all it is. That's the end of it. Then you better go and turn to the dance and visit Harry. Love, double the one give you 2 days. Della. That's and right, give what Chima, dance on the Jawaki. 比如说去做过的是太阳，俺的谈到你都做过的。 彻底了住个，这样俺那谈你的住个，我这样律所也我去不是你的这边去我才把当，谁讲了律所让个律所的要啊，这些基本按照这样的，我去他吃他的，我去我上班去住个我他结个，啊，我去就的，3年去哪年去，3年的就用他们。家把他出个来是呢，他吃要嘛的。上当几天起码你温度抗氧多没办，3个吃了没办法，7米吃了办法吃，谁讲了？我也没有印章，其他可就用嘛，跟也没章，吃他你的吃过，他了他吃。南京也没3百，吃他你的吃过了他吃。俺呢7月岁，全嘛的7月岁，俺呢全嘛都先看个样，没办法印章。帮助评审说我看得起原那样7月岁既然没办年限这种车我看得起原那样7月岁既然没办然后6点钟你找过来把的是吧这些东西年到点点车3年下边老在修的路结果讲的绿的规的绿像你本地老少钱说那些钱的是吧帮助评审说我看得起3年前的下午3八点并不专门可这么把下做过来你对人家在这种情况看着就有那样太阳差的效果的，俺呢让你去6点，结果咱们6点向你找过的，现在律所也我去不行，是讲律师的药啊，基本上是的，吃完的，你我吃个的，吃完的他吃完的，但咱们去吃用卡子这个是呢，卡子对没得，两有话的是呢有嘛的，但吃不吃呢？俺那两个人去基本上俺的中国人嘛多6点向你找过印章，律所也我去不行，你都去比7万3八档，7月结束，把多少考的是呢？彻底了给我也不去住院呢，每个基本我出中去，点不去住院呢，给我起码点着的这些就他吃他来的，彻底了没给我写去住，俺搞得我他说这吧，马上把人把哥哥录的，天天这个。只有他妈吃住给想往就说你现在呢，早上按照嘛就那样的，对吧？每个晚了都按说，这些按照他们先做，给了大多电话呀，电话滚都电话，前面俺那得看说啊，你们下去是个速度啊，别人马上就几点了，这不等到这么就得贵呢，这么就带过来马到，这么马到完了，这么这个马的吧。这上不这落到这上不结果来3分多了，这一结果了吧？这就到过了吧？人家人民经济就来，人民经济在我们结果的去年的，别让这我这经济过完的，人家就这我电话就过完了，就给我就过的，在我没给我就从东岸去对对干了，就没给我用过的，这等于上多少来干那你的，但多少你的用嘛的。是吧？连着连给我啥人呢？连着电视透过来，没给我啥人呢？我的电视透过来。现在看是，你说要我去不行，俺你看是，你说要我去不行，你的这边7万3八档，7月结束6档车马行是，俺让就6档车马行，连干那个就是在那做过来，干那连在7星涨完来，我等不年呢，但我店里干了，彻底了。对吧？长不起那样，帮呀他，给我长不起那样，都怪如把的，那哪来带地吧？
So now we actually have this precious human rebirth, yeah, where it is referring in that second verse, yeah, the precious freedom of this rebirth. So now we should also use it in a correct way, and that means now we can create the right causes to have the same conditions again in future lifetimes. Yeah? So that's why we try to create causes again for a higher rebirth and try to create causes again for human life. Then the human life we have at the moment, also we will see it's not perfect. Yeah? It still has, we still have certain forms of suffering, either mental or physical. So, because it's not perfect, we also actually strive for a better state in the future. So first of all, in order to strive for this better state called liberation, we need again a good rebirth in a future lifetime. And so we have to create the causes for a good rebirth. And why do we actually have to start right now? Yeah, that's also relating with a certain motivation we should have. We should put the things into practice as soon as we can. And why is that? Because the time of death is the time of death is not definite. Yeah, that's the next point in the text is referring to the impermanence of our existence, and that's referring to 3 points. And what are those 3 points? That definitely we gonna die. That's the first point. The second point is the time of death is not certain. And the third point is that actually only the Dharma or our spiritual achievements will go on put in our continuity of consciousness, will go to the next rebirth. And possessions, wealth, family, friends, won't be of much benefit at the time of death. We cannot take them with us. The only thing we can take us is our mental development. Yeah, so that's why there's been a lot of emphasis being put of our spiritual practice. Then also Losang Choje Gyatsen, one of the great Buddhist masters in Tibet, he also says at the time of death, nothing is of use than the actual mental development or the Dharma, so to say. Friends, relatives and possessions will not be of much use at the time of death. That is also referring in the same text on that page number 3, where it reads in the 3rd verse, this life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Yeah, it's referring to our existence, that the time of death is uncertain. Yeah, remember how quickly it decays and death comes. Yeah, that is also referring to referring to the impermanent nature of our human body. And after that, just like the shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. So this is also referring to, first of all, the time of death can come any minute. Yeah, we cannot guarantee for 100% you will not die tomorrow, for example. Yeah, so also we can say that what comes earlier, tomorrow or the next life, that is uncertain. Yeah, so that is uncertain, and this is actually motivating us to try to put things into practice right now. Then, what we saw before, we have to first of all practice morality in order to create the right causes, because if the next life is coming around the corner, then there's 2 possibilities. We either go to a high rebirth or we go to a lower rebirth. So if you in this life have created a lot of positive deeds, then of course you're guaranteed for a good rebirth. But if you have created negative deeds like killing, stealing, misleading people, that kind of negative deeds will create causes for lower states of existence. So it's important to create the right causes for good rebirth. Also, one of the great masters, Sagya Sengye, also had said that if you prepare the fields well and you have the right seeds to be planted, then definitely the harvest will also be good. Yeah, so that is also referring to our spiritual development. If we create the right causes, then also we will acquire the correct or the effects we wish to achieve in the future. So that's why it's referring to white and black karma. Yeah, so black karma here in this verse number 3 is referring to negative deeds, which will cause a lower state of existence, while white karma is referring to the positive deeds like abandoning the 10 non-virtues, as been just explained. So that will create causes for a higher state of existence. So then also in the top part of verse number 4, it also says, finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful, abandon even the slightest negativities, and accomplish all virtuous deeds. So this actually we should take into practice, by knowing the law of cause and effect, generate a certain kind of faith or conviction. And based on this, we try to even prevent the smallest negativities from happening, and try to even practice the smallest positive deeds in order to create the right causes for a good rebirth in the future.
Oh yeah. That is 당봉원보 토전에 친행내와 레바체 세게 당아란조 나란조 줍자 대라 점된되지 추도 신이 승바데 가르치 승와래서 온도 줍지 그 탑을 두고지랑 매리 줍지 그 탑이 말이야. 그가 온도 담이 고마래. 단단 내 시원 나신 전이 아니 미게 주본 그 추좀 대라 때네. 아니 제와 치마 내손도 미동아 징게디 수징 그 말에서나 미국지봉 출미지 되게 된 거래. 예상 상식가들나라 Choje garden, Dharma Shewa, Zimbala Jubitan, Zimbala Jubi on the channel, and so do Milon Zimba Chingadi, Ani, Miguchibong Chibutire. In that said, the Miguchibu Chiri Yabo, Sungsona, Sarah Chimang, and so the Miduma Tachasare. What eh? Sarah Chimang, and so the Miduma, Tandegi, Ludan Chabot, and Dindiki, Jutubeji, Namba Masa. Shirovala Yari, tomorrow, on the Vichit Tachira. You don't want to visit tomorrow. Down come the Nelly says the Galasana, that Dujang Nelly singing the Carrasana, Tapa said, Tabata Tolichema said. That did to J. Tomorrow, Tetu Namasan Yavala Mado. I Shiro to Chivichilu, and you Castle. Lende ke lenge de yang yang yo amare de duma ne ene de la tanya.
So then we strive for higher rebirth, as first been already explained, so create the right causes to achieve a higher rebirth in the future, first of all. So this is one of the 2 points that we like to acquire in the next life. So that is, first of all, is the high rebirth, or sometimes referring to temporary goodness. And the other point is ultimate goodness, which is referring to the state of liberation or the state of Buddhahood. So first of all, the first one, a good rebirth or the temporary goodness is referring to the practice of morality. Abandoning the 10 non-virtues automatically creates causes for a good rebirth in the future. So if we in this way practice morality, that's also actually the meaning of the Sanskrit term dharma, to actually practice the morality of abandoning negative deeds. And by doing so, one prevents oneself from falling in lower states of existence after this lifetime. So this kind of philosophy or this kind of practice is also we can find in non-Buddhist traditions. Also in non-Buddhist traditions like the Hindu tradition, for example, also talks about how to create causes for a higher rebirth as a human being or as a god. So that's a common form of morality or a common form of practice. Then when it comes to the second point, where this talk about the ultimate goodness of liberation and Buddhahood, that's an uncommon Buddhist philosophy of an uncommon Buddhist practice in order to be liberated from the whole cycle of cyclic existence called liberation, as well as to achieve the ultimate state of development of mind, which is called Buddhahood.
Oh yeah, then we get to Jawachimang, I saw the means of a Zimbabwe. That take you be Gauki and Jamwere. That dinner what it Carlo Jamwere and Mare, they do you and the time I saw to my watching it. Because you won't get to get a chokujola, do you got the chokujo de Jamware. That's the chokujo and the rest of Mare. Oh yeah. So then, first of all, our initial motivation, if we divide our spiritual path up to enlightenment, we can have 3 main motivations. So the first one is referring to the motivation of a higher state of rebirth, preventing oneself from falling to lower states of existence. That's our initial motivation, in our spiritual path to enlightenment, and that is based on that kind of intention. Not to fall into lower states of rebirth, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So that's our initial form of taking refuge. That is not yet the ultimate or supreme form of taking refuge, but that's our initial stage. That is la. Nearly Taban Rubala Kandis Gogo are Sena. That Kadasora Sana, Dungaki Yemi Sani, and the Dungala Tandoki Laiko, Jewachi Gogo are, and the Dungala Kandi Sena. 다 동아 수미에 나네 제배명은 동아 군주고 이된 미로 시비 편조디 예미리네 탈변 대화라 되니 첨부제와 진지로 세대기 다 가르친 거래서나 제배명은 동아 군주고 이가라 지당 동아라 동아지 동아 유유 동아 샤와도 저기 동아 전에 동아 수미에 와래 자, 다 동아지 동아라 이교당 내중 제와데 전도来要的，是吧？전도来呢，参与动啊，弄的个了40了多一趟，至于的了3月10了多一趟，长于动啊有30了多一趟，전도来要的，这了已经讲话的전도来要的，还来转的话嘛的，是吧？哦，这样动啊嘞，有就전도来样去，哦。 다 테마인 바 나랑도 대화 되게 사체가 초안 대화 나랑도 대화 표준 초와 되게 요아와 사체가 초안 대화라 이게 와데 싫어와래 요아래 그와 초안 대화라 이게 깨네 3년 공리 아니 초안 대화 라세비 세바고 공조 번에 대야 요아래 싫어와래 요아래 다 이게 깨서데 가와 깨고래서나 차원 도시 동아 생각되라 이게 깨고 와래다 是吧？这边名东啊根据高，是讲了东啊根据我的看来，但千万都是个东啊的人，千万都是个东啊，那东啊我家吃吧的新的那干了干过的，是吧？千万都是个东啊的，我家肯定进来是个人，是那千万都是是个我让最那边3000年的碰不得，千万都是个东啊的，是吧？我让最连下边碰不得3000年的个东啊，千万都是个东啊是。 我你那一句讲话是过过的，当我让做你两把了单呢，俺那东啊开始用过的是哪？他不这个高了，这个东啊，快没有俺对人咱们家就高了，俺那这个东啊，没有俺呢人咱们家呢，这些年我呢说的这话的高啊，那话细话，刚刚碰不得了单来用过的，啊，你都把咱挑话的碰不得了单来用过的。 다 미도 받아 차바당 풍부들라 때는 용거래. 제와 권바 동아 풍부들라 때는 용거래. 그래서 예전 사실 예리지 풍부들 주줘야 그 풍부들려 발라 때는 동아 탐제 풍부들려 발라 때는 중앙 인상 제배명 동아 군주고 세대들이. 와 예전 된다지 가소래. 누르기 가소래. 로바타와 진다 터져다 이단이다 냐와 깨와다 제유 감여받아 터져다 틀리라니 깨와 시에자 미금 깨잡고 깨잡고 대단 태외 콤바년에 깨와 노빌레도 배바차 시도 단다 때 미금 깨단 차이 냐와라 마지 이다라 마지 전도라 마지 아니 녹다제라 마지 산제니까 마다와 텐데라 마지 미금 깨단 차이 때 텐데지리리 가라 다 가를 매주시에도 가를 치고래서나 다连续往的穷풍부대连美国와지래 배고래 세야되라 안 대단 차이가 콤바년나니 개원 내 도벨려도 배바제 시가다连续往的穷풍부대란连美国와지 당은 넘버 산제 그 치기 이규 제상 오마데连续往的풍부대 동아 댐바 세야되 니데 동아 댐바스 댐바시도와 좀된 대기장 상제마 타도 니니 동아 파비 대와 니니 디가 과래서나 풍부대 동아 파비 대바래 세바래 풍부대 동아 대바 임바데 시고래 세가라 동아 시와차 시와래 니렘발라 때나 동아 강가 티용고래 연구하러와 동아 시와차 일단 동아 대바스나 간디 지고를 세서나 레당 녀모기 왕기 중이 풍부대 동아지 대바 임바시야 우단 디좀된 데그 치우기니 뭐 동아 대바 임바 대 동아 대바 임바 시지 동아기 님이 시지 간라 아니 텔라 미디벨 로지기리 와 네바치 네르지 나네 네텔라 때네 동아 용아지 시지 간라 다 네텔라 미디바 지기도 와 네텔라 미디바 지지 간라 미디바 지기 와와 이다 상보텔라 네텔라 미디바 지 되네 네테 미디바 인상 네테 차바체베 맨땡 고도 와 맨땅 것도 와. 내가 내디 미디바 지 내디 미디바 지게 내디 주 가르야 되는 중앙에 내디 규디 방구도 와. 내디 규디 말방나 대우 내디도 도그 말해 와. 이나 내디 규디 방과 인상 동아 시와차 린디 동아 파비 대와고. 다 제주 동아 파비 대와 용사데 가와지 와서나 육군중을 때는 내년이 샤와지 풍보 연애도 가르서나 레단 니몬을 때는 중앙에 인상 레단 니몬데 주군주 대바래 얘나 대우 동아 메데나 주군주 대바래 빵고래 세가라 군주 빵와차 신고하라 그래서 야 대신도 안 되죠.
So then here it's referring to our future lifetimes, first of all, and then depending on the future lifetimes we can have to experience again different states of rebirths in cyclic existence. So here is referring basically to we strive for what is called ultimate goodness or liberation from all forms of contaminated forms of rebirths, of all forms of suffering. So we strive for this state of liberation. And in order to strive for the state of liberation, we have to generate what is called the mind of renunciation, the wish to achieve that abandonment of all forms of suffering. So in short, there's three types of suffering. Yeah, we have the suffering of suffering, first one. The second one, the suffering of change, and the all-pervasive, compounding form of suffering. So these three forms of suffering we talk about. Then the first one, yeah, the suffering of suffering. We also see that animals are able to eliminate this suffering of suffering. Yeah, if an animal or a dog is in the sun, he wakes up from his afternoon sleep or whatever, then he finds it too hot and looks for a more cool place to stay. So he goes in the shade. When he is cold, he does try to do the same thing. Again, he looks for a place that is brings him more comfort. So we see animals in this way are able to eliminate the first suffering, the suffering of suffering. Then the second one, the suffering of change, is referring to that we ourselves have in this existence still some forms of happiness, but that happiness of this particular desire realm is still referring to a form of happiness we called contaminated happiness. Yeah. So also non-Buddhist practitioners, they also able to eliminate this form of suffering of change. Yeah, if you achieve the different forms of what is called absorptions, yeah, based on having developed concentration of the mind or calm abiding, one is able to achieve higher states within cyclic existence with no suffering of suffering. Yeah, so that even non-Buddhists are able to achieve that goal. Then the third form of suffering, to abandon the third form of suffering, which is called the all-pervasive, compounding form of suffering, is a more difficult form of suffering to understand. So what kind of suffering we're talking about here? This all-pervasive, compounding form of suffering. Actually, we're talking about our contaminated aggregates, yeah, the aggregates of body and mind. Yeah, so they are contaminated. Why are they contaminated? Because they are being created by the cause of karma, as well as by delusions. Yeah, so by karma and delusions, these aggregates are being put into being, and that's why they're being called a contaminated form. Yeah, because the cause is contaminated, the effect is also contaminated. So because of having this contaminated aggregate we have right now, we still have to experience the different sufferings. Yeah, we can think about the suffering of birth when a child is born, different suffering of coming out of the womb of the mother. Then after birth, of course, there's the suffering of aging, the suffering of sickness, and the suffering of death. Yeah, so we have those different forms of suffering we have to experience as long as we still have these contaminated aggregates. So by depending on these contaminated aggregates, actually, it's referring to the door of all suffering on that last verse on page number 3, where it reads, seeking samsaric pleasures. Yeah, it's referring to the contaminated form. Yeah, the contaminated form of happiness. Seeking samsaric pleasures is a door to all suffering. Yeah, so here the door to all suffering is referring to that contaminated aggregate, yeah, of body and mind, which is created by delusions and karma. They are uncertain and cannot be relied upon. Yeah, everything in cyclic existence doesn't have a certainty, as we see from our own point of view. Also, our happiness is not everlasting. So recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Yeah, so that is referring to the mind of renunciation, wishing to eliminate all forms of suffering, the suffering of suffering, as well as the suffering of change, as well as the last one, especially the last one, the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering, yeah, which is referring to our contaminated aggregates. So also now it's time to walk on this process to achieve that goal of liberation, because now we have the precious human rebirth. So also Nagarjuna, one of the great Indian masters, he refers to the precious human rebirth in his letter to a king. That is very important. Now we have found this precious human rebirth with freedoms and endowments. Yeah, so we are born means we are not reborn in lower states of existence, either as a hell being, a spirit, or an animal, or as a long-living god in one of the higher realms. And it's also very difficult to practice Dharma, so we're not reborn there. And we're also not born in a place where the teachings of the Buddha have never been in existence, and we never been reborn in barbaric places where it's very difficult to practice Dharma, etc. So we are free of those conditions that can prevent us from developing ourselves. So we right now have found this precious human rebirth. So now it's time to take the essence to practice the Dharma. And what does that mean to practice Dharma? As we saw, what is the cause for this contaminated form of happiness? Yeah, this aggregate we called contamination. That is caused by, we saw, karma and delusions. Yeah, so initially the Buddha also talked about these points in his first teachings on the Four Noble Truths. So first of all, the Buddha said, recognize, or you should know, what is suffering. Yeah? So the first Noble Truth is referring to suffering, yeah, the truth of suffering. So the Buddha explains that the contaminated aggregates we have right now is actually in the nature of suffering. Yeah? So you should recognize this nature. So that's referring to the first Noble Truth. In a similar way, we can see a person who gets sick, yeah, a person who gets a certain sickness. Initially he generates a wish to get rid of the sickness, yeah, to get cured, isn't it? So in a similar way we should practice likewise. We should understand the nature of suffering, and after that automatically the question will come about, what was the cause of this particular sickness for the sick person, and for us, what is actually the cause for this state of suffering or for this state of unhappiness. So in similar way, a sick person depends on a doctor, a sick person depends on medicines to get better. So in a similar way, we also try to understand the nature of suffering, and automatically the question comes about, what is the cause of the suffering? Then the Buddha taught the second Noble Truth and said you should abandon karma and delusions, yeah, negative karma and delusions. So if you take away this negative cause, then also suffering, its effect, will not come into being. So the Buddha in short taught the first two Noble Truths, yeah, the truth of suffering and the true cause of suffering. So the Buddha said you should know and understand suffering, and you should abandon the cause for suffering. So we should first of all, as been explained according to those Four Noble Truths, we should first of all understand the nature of suffering, and secondly we should know the cause. So first of all, the nature of the suffering, we should also see that suffering as a fault, something we don't desire, we don't like to experience in the future. That's our initial step. That's very important. And then automatically the wish will come, how? To abandon the cause of that particular suffering. So as we started the teaching today with taking refuge has two aspects. You can take refuge based, or becoming a Buddhist based on taking refuge, or you can become a Buddhist from the point of view of accepting the four seals of Buddhist philosophy. We talked about in the beginning. So these four seals of Buddhist philosophy are also very important. Why is it so? Because everything in our life is depending on causes and conditions. It's not that things are created by a certain creator. We as Buddhists don't accept that kind of philosophy. We think that the law of cause and effect, or dependent origination, that everything is interdependent with each other, and that things only come about by cause and effect. So this has also been explained in those four seals of Buddhist philosophy. So the first seal, or the first aspect of these four seals of Buddhist philosophy says that all compounding phenomena are in the nature of impermanence. So that means that everything that is compounded, or everything that is in the nature of being impermanent, is created or comes to existence by the law of cause and effect. A certain cause creates a certain effect. So also with the cause and effect you have good causes and negative causes. So the good cause will cause happiness, and the negative cause or negative karma will create suffering. So here this being explained in this first seal of Buddhist philosophy. Then the second seal of Buddhist philosophy is then referring to that all contaminated phenomena. We just talked about the contaminated aggregates. So the contaminated phenomena, they are a cause for suffering. So here we see the first two aspects of these four seals of Buddhist philosophy also refer to the first two noble truths, the truth of suffering as well as the true cause of suffering.
가설에 최대라 미국지봉구 출입성된 데바 안에 가설에 미국지봉인데 미국지봉 빵 투와자지 이나양 다 자와니 미국주 빵와지 거와라 미국주 이지워지 제제기 유 차단 모습의 말로나 저 미국가 좀 제야지도 아야 말이 인산 유 차단 모습도 도고 하래 인산 림바니와 대라 안에 가서래 내가 지암면서지 그와 표소랑 게 심리 용수 두 써야 돼. 뭐 대승 거래 차단 모습. 얘자 차단 모습 도고 아래 차단 모습 도봐 제발라. 다 차단 모습 도에 차단 모습 써야 돼. 도주 요와지 레베스나 차단 모습 도주 요와지. 차단 매와서야 돼. 매와서 주용게. 좀된 대장 당분에 알아서 나시 전에 타마와 칭업빈대지 가사지 레디 점된 대기 다정하시 시원하시 이제 님비 차대다는 바 시도 때 아니 방자대다는 바 시도 땅체 아니 코란야 공아 코네 피데 탈을 끼운 것에도 연대 근데 그 산재지 공부하지 녀라와 안 줘야 되나시지래 인자 다 공부니와 되라 당보되라 류진이지게 봐 도니 류진이 자원에 매바 지셔와라 다 류진이지 끝나라와 차상 모습 세도고 하래 차단 모습 생각도 도주 이와지 레스나 도주 이와지 레스 대인바리 가르에서나 최탐제 동신 다음에 봐 승과래 최탐제 동신 다음에 봐서 최탐제 소리 아랑원의 주변 동바래 아랑원도 맞주바래 차단 모습 세야 돼 아랑원도 주와요 말이야 당 아랑 유지 심지 차단 모습다 제요와래 돼 심지 랑아신라 아니 차단 모습 쉬요 말이야 semjiranshila chadam mosum mashuware semji korang chadam mosum da chawaru jire right gombo chambaki jijin chambaki renje nanga chudasin suanasin rinpoche ranshila yama shuba chu ranshila nyoma mashuba nanga ranshila jing mashuba nanga ranshila jing mashuba nanga jing da charu 去让心了鸟妈妈修把一当出鸟妈当茶中实际让心了要么修把一当谁家当茶中天让心讲的马上就甚至让心那样恰当模式马出马修把一张恰当模式现在的路不完的那个了只有路不的去玩那现在甚至了路不的去玩起来过没把谁给恰当模式让心就中呢恰当模式的让我们让心就中呢아니 차다 뭐 숨지다 자롱이야 말이 차다 뭐 라왕도 마주 봐 인자 고 숨지다 자롱이 저 인자 최점자 장시지 동바 인자 차다 뭐도 숨지다 자주래 몽바 차다 뭐좀 아니 가르래서 자주래다 차다 뭐도 좀을 제바기 니뭐 덤대 요아래 야
So then in this life what we try to accomplish we try to abandon those negative deeds of either body, speech and mind, or abandoning the 10 non-virtues. So that's our first step, our initial step. Then our next step on our spiritual path is to abandon the delusions. We talked in the beginning about the faults or the mistakes. To abandon the delusions like attachment, anger and ignorance. So then the question can arise, are we able, are we possible to abandon those illusions of attachment, anger and ignorance? Then that is possible. The answer is yes, because also the Buddha has shown us the example as being practiced in stages, practiced in stages by putting the right antidotes, abandoning negative deeds, and by this way also gaining the different qualities. So we can do the same. Why is that so? Because this is referring to the third seal of Buddhist philosophy. We just covered the first two. So the third seal of Buddhist philosophy is referring to that all phenomena are basically empty and selflessness, without a self. So all phenomena are in this nature of being empty as well as being selfless. So this means that because of that, nothing exists from its own side. Nothing exists inherently. So this kind of philosophy or this kind of view is very important. Why is that so? Because those delusions like anger, attachment and ignorance, they don't exist as being inherently with our mind. They're not in the same nature as the mind, so to say. So because they in a separate nature as the mind, they can be eliminated from the mind. So that's a very important point to know, this third seal of Buddhist philosophy, that all phenomena, like our own mind, is empty of inherent existence. It's empty of being existing from its own side. So it is very important because also Maitreya, he says in one of his texts, he gives the example of gold, water and the sky, and that also those three examples don't exist from their own side, and also is referring to the different stains. For example, the clouds in the sky, they are not inherently with the sky itself. They're not in the same nature as the sky itself. They are just temporary and they disappear. With water is the same thing. If you have the clear H2O, the purity of water, that is also free of stains of dirt, etc. In a similar way with gold, if you have pure 24 carats, no, it's called, is it? Gold, then also that is free of stains. The actual nature or the atomic substance gold is free of anything else. So in a similar way, our mind is free. Is inherently free of those stains of the delusions like anger, attachment and ignorance. So that being the case, like the clouds in the sky disappear, like dirt we can filter out of water, and gold by itself doesn't have any contamination, then also the mind by itself has only temporary delusions. So that means we can eliminate, the potential is there to eliminate those delusions. So that is also very important to know these points in relation with the third seal, that all phenomena are empty of inherent nature, or all phenomena are empty of existence from their own side, without depending on causes and conditions.
Oh yeah, today is that Chagda Monsum said the Kawala Jawa Zawa Ani Misheba Mariba, Misheba Mariba. Misheba Mariba Singata, Misheba Tela, 몽잠지 마르바지당 치조그 마르바지 니가 이바래 아 치지로그 마르바 생각에 간지래 사나 따따도 봐 말한도라 토마 매바나 앉아서 예바 아니 nga 쓰니까나 nga 바라원도 주바 진행되기 몽자지 마르바지 가 치지로그 마르바지 되게 대이 되네 나도 제가 대라 때네 나라 나기 대화를 차봐 나기 대화를 차봐 깨와대 말아도 무슨 주고야 영에 주고래 알아 아니 와서 나기 대화를 차봐 나기 대화를 차봐 대양 나기 대화 대양 왕소 다다와다 시로지 세고라서 와나 마대바 나기 대화 미주바 인장 왕소 다다와다 시로지 세고라 세비 세바디 기도하래 세바 되기 때 세바 될라 때네 아니 대화 주비치도 고슴지 량원바 두치고 와래 고슴지 량원바 두치디 가는 대배튼 두디 가나 대자지 대배튼 마주바다 미디비 튼 두디 가나 해당지 어디 차다 모좀 되게 왕기 아니 내상을 사지가 그마 내상하지 내상할 때네 아니 난도당 연주기 깨내를 두채 아니 동화도 없었고 깨내 주고래 내지 바자디 마삼지 등도 그러디 아니 됐었다디가나 나때네 치마 되디가나 양계와 치마 마잉아도 인삼 자유 가나 드니 양 동화지 고치 점바디 제유고 제유 동안에 해서 고치 점바디 오도 전이 가나 다 치시 다도 집에 말을 받은 마사 파도 랭이기 왕기 풍부 주에데 윤체요 랭이기 왕기 풍부지 랭 친제라 동아지랑 실면과 다시 나시대 요 얘가 랭이기 왕기 지위 동아래 탈비 탈바지 되디 가나 두 단지 말을 받고 도고래 말은 받도나 말이 왕기 중 레사바데 도고래 레사도 가나 레지도 남이지 도고래 와
So then, we saw the actually causes for suffering, yeah, the delusions and karma. So how does that come about? How does delusion and karma come about? How are sufferings being created? Yeah, that's the question. So then we will see that the root cause is ignorance. By having ignorance, we create delusions, and by creating delusions, we create negative karma, which give us a lot of difficulty in the future, like suffering. So there's two forms of ignorance. Yeah, one form of ignorance is just merely not knowing. Yeah, and another form of ignorance is referring to a wrong view. Yeah, so most of us have both forms of ignorance. Since the beginning of this lifetime, we have kind of, for sure, the ignorance of grasping towards the self, yeah, which means grasping towards the self, see the self as existing from its own side. So grasping at a self in this way creates a lot of problems. Why is it so? Because this self-cherishing attitude, because this grasping at a self, we get really attached to our own happiness, yeah? And we strive for that happiness very strongly. So if there's a really strong grasping, or so to say a strong egoistic kind of self-cherishing attitude, then we need those possessions, certain possessions, in order to achieve our goal of happiness. Yeah? So the stronger this becomes, the more problems it will create. Why is it so? Because if we don't get those particular possessions, we might generate aversion. Yeah? So that's another way to harm oneself and others. And by this attachment, as well as aversions to others, which prevents us from achieving our own happiness, for example, we create what is called negative karma. Yeah? So you see, by the power of ignorance, delusions, anger, and attachment come around the corner. By the power of those two delusions, we create karma. And by the power of karma, we be able to create different causes which either can throw us in a higher state or lower states of existence. Yeah, so if we create a lot of negative karma, it can throw us, so to say, in lower states of rebirth, like the hell realm, animal realm, and the spirit realm, for example. So it's important to prevent that negative karma from coming into being. Yeah, because it's actually what being just referred before. It's the door to suffering. So we try to close that door to suffering in order to eliminate that negative karma. Because if we don't eliminate this grasping at itself, yeah, the ignorance, which is the cause for delusions to arise, which is by itself the cause for karma and suffering to come about. So if we don't eliminate this root cause of grasping at itself, we will still generate delusions as well as karma, and generate again contaminated aggregates, as we just saw before, that the contaminated aggregates, yeah, the nature of suffering, contaminated aggregates are created by karma and delusions. So it's very important to eliminate the root cause, what is then referring to that ignorance of grasping at itself.
Oh yeah, that is the Danzi Mariba, Senate Tusonga. That Danzi Mariba Senate Kadisere, Shiva Inzang, that Tegi Chinangi, Mobuch Church Hamja, Rawan to Truba. Rawan to Truba. Chinanga Marazungo Mobochanda, Ani Desam, Ani Mingi Patatam. 遇见恰下来在那对吧咱不对的对咱大咱让王都马主把印章让王都马主把的让王都出那俺你遇见个七八九元嘛可让王都出把印章印章让王都马主把的让王都出把整个的大得看点啥呢当成马的把在的现在我让王都马主把明个怕带咱对咱 见了啥来吧？有些就我也见了啥来着？有些没人把人呐，俺那盘子炒上了，在那对吧？咱们印章，盘子对住印章，让俺都没住吧的。看看见了啥来吧？特别让心起点，送不太了也咱们流动中的继续有，今年，俺那讲我那么装话说话的，这个空度上没这个修一多一个说，看谁见了叫我听没？听你见了让心也吧。 见了让来看的东西吃，遇见了让来把么吃下来对吧么？平时对吧印章，让我都没做不来，送过来，是吧？印章让我都没做不多为落地吃嘛，快了点点月吧，让我都做不这边落地落七几落，快了点点买吧，让我都这边买吧这边落地，空呢空都配地上吧。 让王都出把这个落地的其中提出你们穷的钱呢，他是让王都这把这个落地早晚里面把水吐过来的，别人俺让说几点了，长日给冬天咱把，差为俺那长日来点地干了，差为人家空呢空都配地干了，长日修的起来，他是长日晒的，差为人家用个的话，我挺担心钱呢。 假点千万元跟个落的狂呢配的咱吧，他是让王都没白，让王都知道这个落的修穷的去的，他是让王都才把给长日早晚的三把那些，让王都这个落的早晚的三把教我的，现在的三把得了，两个人带娃你希望啊，缺他们些东西咱们吧，两个人带娃你希望谁的是的。 你那两个人在我希望啥的，希望的肯定是错来上。当你光把的，当你多比落地，他比家庭比身比过呢，可以落的空白都过的干了。俺你懂了，他刚说的，懂俺点啥比啥把的用过话一张，两个人在我啥的，懂俺当你们点啥比啥把的了，两个人在我希望啥的，他都中国的。哪怕上去去过中国，他顶两用多电视台呢，
So then, here we're referring to that grasping at itself, yeah, that ignorance what has to be abandoned. So this grasping, we grasp at itself of the person as well as we grasp at the phenomena around us, yeah. So this is actually the root cause, as we just explained, of the delusions and the root cause for karma. So the root cause for suffering to come about, yeah. So then we start to examine if this ignorance is a correct view, or if it's a mistaken, or even better, a wrong form of consciousness. Yeah. So then the whole philosophy of dependent origination, yeah, comes around the corner. So because of depending phenomena are depending upon each other, yeah, and dependent origination, because that being the case, nothing can exist from their own side without depending on something else, or without depending on causes and conditions. So that's why this philosophy of dependent origination is very important. Yeah, everything, all conditional phenomena, all impermanent phenomena, for example, depend on causes and conditions, first of all. And also Lama Tsongkhapa, the great Tibetan master, who also explained that things cannot exist from their own side. Yeah? Not even one single phenomena can exist from their own side without depending on something else. Why is that so? Because it's, first of all, it's depending on causes and conditions. Secondly, it's depending on its own parts, yeah, or the collection of parts. And thirdly, it is depending on a mere label, yeah, a name we label upon a certain phenomena. So there's three levels of dependent origination. The first level in relation with cause and conditions. The second level in relation with parts or a collection of parts. And the third form of dependent origination, which is referring to the mere labeling, or so to say, the imputation of phenomena. So we see here that this nature of dependent origination is extremely important. So then again, we start to analyze that basically that ignorance, yeah, we saw before, that grasping at a self is basically a wrong consciousness. Yeah. So being a wrong consciousness, it can be eliminated with a correct form of consciousness. Yeah. So the more we generate a correct form of consciousness, which is referring to realizing emptiness or realizing the empty nature, yeah, of phenomena being existing from their own side. Yeah, that is referring to that third seal of Buddhist philosophy we talked about, that all phenomena are empty and selfless. Yeah, so it means empty of inherent existence. So this correct form of consciousness, yeah, is able to eliminate that wrong form of consciousness of ignorance. This doesn't come from one day to the other day. It will also take time. Yeah, it's similar way in a worldly, on a worldly level. If we try to get rid of some stains in our clothes, for example, then initially we get rid of the gross parts, and then slowly we can get rid of the more subtle forms of stains or subtle forms of dirt, so to say, contamination. So in a similar way also here, the more we develop that correct form of consciousness, of seeing the empty nature of inherent existence, yeah, and by seeing this, ultimately we will stage by stage be able to abandon all the stains of our mind, yeah, to abandon ignorance as well as the delusions. Yeah, if we abandon ignorance, we will automatically abandon the delusions. And then we come to the fourth seal of Buddhist philosophy, which means that, which says nirvana is peace. It's referring to, if you achieve the ultimate goal of having eliminated all the faults or all the delusions, you will never have a cause for suffering to come about. So that's what we call liberation, yeah, or nirvana. So that is referring by depending upon the third seal, yeah, that everything is empty of inherent nature. By depending on this third seal, we will be able to accomplish the state of nirvana, of ultimate peace.
Oh yeah, that is the exam. You mean in the Tibet, there was a tiny chimbo, change it low. Say, Gana, that Toma, Tela, Dunga Sabi Gane, and it Dunga la Tanduki, Chawduji, Dunga la Tanduki, Toma, Makia, Tabatini, Lojema, Kidikana, and a Lamdushu, Sigwari. 10 years about into any Samutombani, Sagi, Petoni, Ani Toma Unjua, Jamaica, Nakatela, Ani Tomani said the Tunji Sujitoni. Ani Unjua Jabini, what Tommy, 10 years about, she don't know some Dodicana, that's about, she don't know some to Dodizaba, that Nazon to Casa Sajanili, Pumbotella, Dumala, Jumbache, Dunga, Jumba Chebaki, and Koya Dumala, Zimba Chingan, and Chojo, the Carrera Sana, that don't know some to be shared today. Take Koaji with you, Danzin Maribaki. Change a lot of thoughts, sharing about Tone. Take Lord, I don't want some to do this samba. I need to buy to take it, Covineski, then you want to go out the Milon and Zini. Then Tendavi, Lenny dancing Maripati Rimba, Shidu, Ta, Raba, Tarum, Rarum, Ya, Sadi, Tar, and the Dumaku Sabaki, Taba said to Gari. In the Tendavi, Dumadi, rounding to some December, Nejure, rounding to some Negana, around Dunga and Midepa, and it do not get the type of Tapachi, do I interpret rounding some Negana, and it Nejung said it. 那天那些人呢，让东啊进那那些人呢，甚至先刚刚我让几把几讲连年往里，给东啊娘啊几把人张，先让东啊就没说罢了，你就干了，俺的年纪在这里，研究的年纪，是吧？人家年纪也不去，什么叫他们东啊了没说比年纪结完了，让的起来站里面吧。 先去了之后完了，让去结把3万那些钱呢，让你靠的东啊了，刚才东啊去他把马做把了钱，他把了别突然没把一张，俺的身体写的都是这样做的，是吧？一张当然嘛对手给，是吧？人家刚才的，那这问题是不是你们人家他把天气？ 天气全部结quả亲切的，那么大三把天气长把也是那么大三把眼中的给长呢，当给主龙给短把这个一那啊，给你个短把一那样，眼中个300长把是够过的，那么大三把天气长把一天上星星把也吃饱了，电白早把说早把了，就把宁波去把亲戚老谁干了，当人家他们这几西点的水中去拉瓦的嘞。 听你觉得没去啥幸福，人人会西点来我送，这里路送啊那些钱，人家说他就出这么了，接着是吃苦苦嘞，真的的，我老娃送的话，帮家你们帮我吃罢了，当真嘛这把叫完了，老娃送给哪里，出这么个老娃行，俺的提点了，等于自己老娃，等于自己老娃了，等于写着给老娃去干了，俺的其他兄弟的等于是光呢。 俺的当时是，上边的讲话是马戏的帮的，他把你掏过来的。因此，搞下来，俺的这边没东啊，这边没我，一点没有，这个你没人头天的。那么到三把天全把一天当西行，把一全部一，点别啥话，说他把了，就把英国去把去去了，是个了，哪年看的人是呢？哪我送给那来，哪年去过来是吧？啊。
So then the part which will lead us to this state of nirvana, yeah, we're striving for, the ultimate state of peace, as being the fourth seal of the Buddhist philosophy. So then, how do we do that? By realizing emptiness, yeah, we just talked about the empty, realizing the empty nature of inherent existence, yeah, realizing that nothing exists from its own side. So this also happens in stages. Initially there's a conceptual understanding, and then there's a conceptual realizations. Yeah? So it depends upon what is called a general meaning or a mental image. After that, one meditates more and more upon these points. One will be able to directly perceive emptiness, directly see emptiness very clearly, that nothing can exist from their own side. So this is actually the direct realization of emptiness, yeah, as we call it. This direct realization of emptiness is actually the ultimate Dharma jewel. Yeah, we talked about the 3 jewels of refuge, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So this realization is actually what we strive for. Yeah, so that's actually our ultimate refuge, of taking refuge in the direct realization of emptiness. So this also has been explained as we have give the explanation of the example with a piece of cloth with the different stains, which also goes in stages. Also here, with those realizations of emptiness, we step by step will be able to eliminate the different forms of ignorance, and then ultimately be able to achieve our goal of liberation. Yeah, the step of liberation, or ultimate peace. So this kind of state is not enough by itself. Why is that so? Because all sentient beings around us, actually, they are in the same nature. Yeah, all other beings around us, they are undergoing suffering by having contaminated aggregates. So they undergo the different sufferings we just talked about. So we try to generate compassion. Yeah, that's the next step in our spiritual development, to generate compassion, the wish for all sentient beings to be free of suffering. So this compassion doesn't come about by itself. That also goes in stages. Initially, we need renunciation. Yeah? Without the wish to be free of suffering yourself, you can never have the same wish for all sentient beings. So that's why the wish of renunciation is very important. So this has also been said by the great Indian master Shantideva, as well as the great Lama Tsongkhapa, who says without renunciation there is no compassion. So that's why it's very important to spend time and put a lot of emphasis on generating the wish for liberation. Yeah? And then only it will be able to generate the same wish for others. Yeah, what we call compassion. So then we take a step further on our spiritual path to enlightenment. By seeing the suffering nature of all sentient beings around us, we try to generate this compassion, and we try to generate this compassion to a certain extent that we actually gonna take responsibility. Yeah, that we say to ourselves, I will take responsibility, the responsibility to free these sentient beings who are in the same natures of suffering. And then we will able to analyze, yeah, do I have the potential right now to be able to liberate those sentient beings from their suffering? Then you will easily see that the full potential only lays in the hands of a Buddha. A Buddha has eliminated all faults and has acquired all the qualities. So we strive for a similar state as Buddhahood, with which we will be able to the full extent, be able to lead sentient beings to the same state. So we need to abandon those faults, and we need to gain those qualities. So seeing this, we will be able to not only liberate oneself from samsara, but also to help other sentient beings. Yeah, again, without if you yourself stick still in samsara and you don't really understand the path leading to enlightenment, then it's very difficult to lead others to the same goal. So that's why initially we need to generate renunciation, as been talked about on the last verse on page number 3. Yeah. So then we move to page number 5, that little booklet. So then it says, led by this thought, is referring to the thought of renunciation. Yeah, led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the Pachamoksha vows. So this is referring to the teachings of practicing morality. Yeah, the teaching of practicing morality. So then only it says, bless me. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. So this is here referring to the 3 higher trainings. Yeah. So initially also Nagarjuna, the great Indian master, has said in order to fully be able to work for the benefit of sentient beings, you need to train in the 3 higher trainings. So the first is, of course, the higher training of morality. The second one is the higher training of concentration, and the third one is a higher training of wisdom. Yeah. So we need to train in these 3 trainings, and the basis for this is morality. So then by training in morality, we'll be able to get single point concentration of the mind, so it's concentration, and generate the wisdom, as we just talked about. Initially, there's conceptual understanding, conceptual realization of emptiness, then that becomes direct perception. And then if we train in those higher trainings, it even becomes a special insight, yeah, which is non-dual with calm abiding. So a very powerful mind in order to eliminate all those faults. So that's why it's very important to also train in these 3 higher trainings.
아니 냥달라 그 되게 자주 그 셈 세대 삼주삼주 제가 친제로 다 자주 그 셈 세대 가르치야래서 체도 차와 현대 현양달라 그 비치도 다 현양달라 그 봐라 라니 아니 냥달 터바지 그 봐이자 아니 라니 아니 가서래 좌장 터바지 그 봐라 좌장 되니 그 셈들라 아니 자주 그 셈 쓰고 아래 내가 대인자 삼주삼주 제가 친제로 세가라 아니 샘점 제장 주진 남송라 공부면나 스리가라 다 샘제바 좀 지가 말이 다 현양달라 그 봐죠 그 밑에도 탑라라 그 봐인가 탑라 아니 샘제 되죠 그 주진 그와 주디 그 중지 아니 예제도 그 주진 제들을 따고 봐 인자 아니 주진 남선 따고 그래서 또나 하나 누스고 당에 다시 점도 걸어 dom도 잡아 있나 다 계좌도 주위 아니 rang tabja jiwe kunjo sum che sawa rang tabja jiwe sanje kunjo a de sanje kunjo de toba la pangjang ngo su jabar cheba gi rang tabja jiwe che kunjo a de de pangjang ngo su jabar cheba gi lamde toba gi rang tabja jiwe kundi kunjo sum bote ja kunjo sum bote che da de na xie je ni rang la lang do ne chi ji ma la pe dang gen gi 아니 산자 군조 최고 군조 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 수체 예 잡수抓사기 요티체 야 예 잡수 요티체 아 산자 최단 군조에 타바다 바나기 잡수야 대체 다 되라 잡수 조디 가르래서나 윤이 상고하니 라니 코와당 내송 그 동안라 내송을 때는 내송 그 동안 다 랭이 풍부들이야 진짜라 동아제랑 신뢰면도 나대와 다시 요와 시자와 이자 아니 동아 대달란 즉시 장안에 대례 교비 뉴바데 다랑기 톱제지에 남아고저 선보 대랑 아니 장안에 그 조련다 대박이 유적 대달에 예바 신에 다 톱장 타두기 산제군저 톰득기 사바탕 대톱으로 제배랑 그 톱제지위 최군종 아니 반자 과바를 제바 돈이 더비 셋업된지 온도 차적게 셉니다. 아 대질의 댐백이 파베 강사한테 톰득기 쌈바단 제비 간에 아니 기도 레니에 간데지 주나양 라마 군저스 뭐 제라라 냥바데 다 점도 뒤말이 자 어디 대창소나 아니 나바 대강라 선제현라 미비 인제당 제와이나 디바치베 잡서 조고 말이 대마이나 요 정기 점도
So then to summarize a little bit the teaching of today, then we came now to the state of generating compassion, yeah? So by seeing the suffering of all sentient beings and try to generate a wish to free all suffering sentient beings from their suffering as well as their causes, we generate what is called bodhicitta, yeah? That wish for the achievement of enlightenment. And by achieving that goal, we will be able to benefit others to the full extent. Yeah, so if you develop yourself fully, then only then you will be able to be of full benefit for others. So that is referring here to that bodhicitta, the wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So then also it reads in that booklet, the next verse, it says on the page 5, it says, just as I falling into the sea of samsara, so of all mother migratory beings, please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, yeah, here the supreme bodhicitta, based on compassion, is referring to taking the responsibility of I need to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and be the responsibility of freeing migratory beings, yeah, it's been said here in the verse as well. Then the next verse, it says, even if I develop only bodhicitta, but I do not practice the three types of morality. So here, the three types of morality referring to the three types of morality of a bodhisattva, meaning the morality of abandoning negative deeds, first one. The second one, the morality of practicing virtue. And the third one, the morality of working for the benefits of sentient beings. Yeah? So without doing those three practices, you will not be able to achieve your ultimate goal of enlightenment. So that's also why it says here, I will not achieve enlightenment if you don't practice those three types of morality. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. So here is referring to relate this to what we started with today, with taking refuge in three jewels. Then also we see we need a certain guide. Yeah, we talked about we need a guide that leads us to this path, on this path, to the full state of mental development, of enlightenment. So we need a guide as being the teacher, the Buddha, as well as we need a teaching that guides us. Yes, we saw just that the ultimate Dharma jewel was the direct perception of emptiness. Yeah, so we strive also to get this realization. So that's why we also take refuge in the Dharma, as well as we take refuge in those persons who have generated these kind of ultimate states of mind, yeah, of direct perception of emptiness. So that's why we actually take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So then, if you take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha by focusing upon 2 points, yeah, 2 causes, as we talked about, there's 2 causes of taking refuge. One is the fear of the suffering of samsara. Yeah? So you don't wish to experience that suffering of samsara anymore. So you have a certain kind of fear or developed. And the second point or cause for taking refuge is having faith that, or understanding that the three jewels of refuge, they have the potential to lead you beyond that fear of suffering. Yeah? So this is referring to taking refuge according to the middle scope. Yeah? Initially we talked about taking refuge according to the small scope, by taking refuge based on fearing the suffering of the lower realms only. Yeah? So here we have the fear of cyclic existence in total, yeah? The whole sufferings of cyclic existence, striving for liberation, taking refuge, referring to the second motivation of our spiritual path. And then if we combine this with what we just talked about, with compassion, with the wish to liberate all sentient beings, we were able to generate the Mahayana refuge, and that is referring to taking refuge based on compassion or based on the wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So then, if you want to read that prayer, if you're not familiar with that prayer of refuge, they can find it on page number 34 of the prayer book. So then, on that page number 34, it reads, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and all the perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Yeah, so here you take refuge in the three jewels of refuge, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, has been just explained. And why? Because we have those two causes, the fear for suffering as well as the strong faith or understanding that the three jewels have the potential to lead us beyond those forms of suffering. And then by practicing giving and the other perfections, yeah, it's referring to the perfection of giving and the other 5 perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So in order to become a Buddha, you need actually 2 forms of accumulations. Yeah? So here it's actually said by practicing giving and the other perfections. Actually the real Tibetan text means by practicing giving and the 2 collections. There's a better translation maybe, but a definite reference, may I, by practicing giving and the accumulations. Yeah, some verses referring to the accumulations. There's 2 accumulations. One is the accumulation of merit, and the other one is the accumulation of wisdom. Yeah, so there's actually a method aspect and a wisdom aspect. Yeah, so you have to accumulate those 2 courses in order to achieve enlightenment. So that's referring here by the practice of giving and the other perfections. Actually, it includes the perfection of wisdom, which is the collection of wisdom. Yeah, so in the first 5 perfection is referring to the collection of merit. So you need both collections in order to achieve Buddhahood. So may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh yeah, that I do show with his Mendusra. Sometimes children Namson or compartment, changing Mendo, Levaton and Jazat, Jumba Chapilo, Chinjelo, send the Kebatan in Majuba, send the Kebatan Layan, higher bottom of your Samba, Tembatan, Sanja Chela, Chapana, Semjama, Litam, didn't Jamba Major said, Parent, you are ready, get them to go marry. That same Kebatan and Medeva Lanama Bayanda was always Sanja to combat Tom de Yi. Tobi Chitu, and a Jasadi Chiba, Parochiba, Loco Gray, said that some Jazza, children was Parochiba Truam, 선저 된지 줄이 과치 줄이스면 놓고 그래서 고마면에 좀 내가 제사 줘봐라 좀 잡혀라와 친지로 이제라 아니 다 무슨 이모 좀 제발라 시라 손대 거와지 시라 손대 거와인자 노벨유라 인화 체제지 안다텔라 수지 제발 시내 상동 손대 대회라 니도 제발 니도 길에 제발 친자 나와서 방장 무슨 도바 챙겨디 다 시라 손대 그 등에 좀 맞도나 매와이다 안에 시라 손대 등에 길에 제발 용하셔 봐 노벨유라 인화 시 안다텔 니도 길에 제발 친지로 다 되네 람트모와 그 길에 장안장네 너니 지네 아니 도시 티바 아니 수주고 마치때 체딩이라 토바 체겸 아니 뒤통을 통해 제가 그래가 아니 도시 티비랑 놓고 그래 그래서 섬자들로 안로면 러비를 이용 양다전 지나라도 니도 길에 투모랑자 내도 좋아나 티바꾸지 소주도지 개산지위 중앙다 말라니도 주바 지제로 원 주니 아니 원주스 캐라베 탐증도 막 수식도 송화당 람르니 나죠 관발라 때네 타르 아니 오이 가서래 수주 관마 타바지 고고 와래 대인자 수주 관마 타바 제발라 다중 관나 셰바 나신 전에 수주 관마 타바를 셰베 탐만노 왔대 말기 딱 대외신이 라라라바 인장 제와군도 양다 라마 담이 치지 발라 논지 사다는 연대라서는 도시 자고 고만 유도 쇼 스타트 도디나 두스마 두바리 야
So then we conclude, because we are running out of time. So we go quickly to the last verses of this text. So then we see we have to achieve enlightenment. Then also it says, even if I develop bodhicitta, but I don't practice the three types of morality, the third verse on page number 5, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the Bodhisattva vows with great energy. By merely only having the wish is not enough. We have to put things into practice. That's referring to this verse. Then it says, once I have pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, referring to emptiness we just talked about, please bless me to generate quickly within a mind stream the unified part of calm abiding and special insight. We also just talked about that the real antidote towards ignorance, the real antidote towards grasping towards the self, is the realization of emptiness, and a direct realization of emptiness within the nature of the non-duality of calm abiding and special insight. So that is the actual antidote towards ignorance, the actual antidote towards samsara. So that's also we have to develop, of course. Then, having become a pure vessel by training in the general part, it reads, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. So having trained in the common part, of sutra, then it's been advised to also try to train, if you're a suitable vessel, in the Vajra vehicle. That's referring in this verse. Then the next verse, it says, at a time the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping pure vows and samaya. As I have become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. So having entered the Vajrayana, then it's very important to keep the vows and commitments, or to keep the advice that is given you in order to achieve enlightenment very quickly. So then it says, please, having realized the importance of the two stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the Gurus who show the noble path and the teachers or spiritual friends who practice it at long life, please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. And in all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect Gurus, because we talked about the importance of dependence upon a teacher. So also here we make a strong prayer that also in future lifetimes that we never be parted from perfect teachers. May I enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualities of stages and paths, and may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara, referring to ultimate enlightenment. No. So just for now, so we have a break for, let's say, 30-40 minutes. So everybody is invited to go up to the terrace. There are some tea and some snacks to relax a bit after intense 2 hours of listening. And then we start again maybe about, let's say, 1:15. Yeah? Yeah, so just relax a little bit, have some tea and some snacks. Then with a fresh mind, we can start again. 1:15.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah? So then please have something on the terrace on top.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, in one of his